This is definitely one of the many moments where all I want is the predictability of being in a Starbucks where you know everything's just going to be the same way it always is.
This is me. I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, young, dumb, and full of resentment for the place I was born and raised, so I did everything I could to get away from it. I traveled to the US, Canada, and then on to Europe and the Middle East, hoping that I could find someone, something, or somewhere that would give me enough of a reason to never ever have to go back to the boring place that I begrudgingly called home. You might be surprised to hear that I didn't actually find any of those things, and in fact, it was kind of boring. I spent the first half of my 20s in a depressive cycle where I would be living at home and then I would decide to go somewhere else across the world, and I would spend some time there and I would have some momentary relief as I was in a new area with new people and new things to do. And then eventually, due to money or visa restrictions, I had to come back to where I'm from, and then I would get depressed again. I would resent where I was from, I would resent the people, I would blame everything outside of me as to what was going on inside of me, and then I would go away again, and then this cycle kept on going and going and going. Now for the first part of this journey, I was in college, so I would be going away and then coming back for college, and then when I finished college, I all of a sudden was able to go but not need to come back necessarily for college, and so I went away again. And on that particular occasion, I went from here to Canada, and I spent the whole year prior super excited to get the hell out of where I was, because I felt, or I believed, that I was going to be happy in this other place. And so I got in the plane and I flew off to Vancouver, and I remember I was flying into Vancouver, I could see the city, and I had this feeling of absolute dread sink over me, and I was so confused because this has been what I wanted all year. I had been so depressed all year. All I wanted was to get the hell out of where I was, and now I was doing that, and I was about to enter what I thought was going to be my salvation, and ultimately I felt like a big pile of poo. This was so confusing because I had believed that my happiness and my joy existed elsewhere, but then I got to the place and I was feeling even worse than I was. Now eventually that feeling did subside and I started to feel okay again, but you know, there was a transition period which I guess you could, you know, consider normal. And so I lived out there for a while and things were pretty good, you know. Overall I felt better than I ever felt when I was at home, but then inevitably I needed to go home again because my visa ran out. And I learned a load of stuff there and met a load of beautiful people, and I had a really great time. And then I got home again and I was like feeling this bored, depressed state of being once again. And it really upset me to believe that my happiness and my fulfillment was dependent on the physical location that I was in. And the fact that my passport was the sole reason that I was miserable. And yet again, after being home for maybe a year or so, I was in this hole and I had to get out. And so I went this time to Eastern Europe and then the Middle East eventually. And I was even more depressed when I got there because I didn't have the foundation, like the stability that came with living at my parents' house, which is where I was at the time. And just, you know, knowing where everything is, knowing what shop to go to for what, and all of a sudden I'm still depressed. I'm on the road, there's nobody really that I can turn to, and there's just this sense of directionlessness. But it seemed that despite my depression and frustration with where I was from, even going abroad didn't seem to be the remedy that I was seeking. And then that introduced the potential reality that maybe I was boring.
I'm bored. Only boring people are bored.
See, when I reflect on my time spent depressed and miserable at home, it was not so much because it was an unfulfilling place to be, but it was because I believed it was an unfulfilling place to be. I thought, and I was so confident that it was the reason for my misery. And I thought, and I was so confident that elsewhere was the solution to my misery. But through trial and error, I found that I was actually the source of my misery. I was the reason I was grumpy. I was the reason I was bored. I was the reason I was angry and lacking fulfillment and purpose in my life. A lot of people swear by travel as a method to find happiness and peace and relieve stress in your life, and I totally understand where they're coming from. I've gotten a lot of benefit from traveling, but it's not really what I expected it to be. What I learned from traveling was what I was missing within me. I was able to loosen up a little bit because where I'm from, I act a certain way. It's not always effortless for me to be my authentic self here, because I was born here, I was raised here. The people that I went to school with live here. My parents are here. I have all of these subconscious programs about how I'm supposed to perform as a person in the world on these streets. But if I go across the sea to a different country where nobody knows me, then all of a sudden I'm free to be a different version of me. And that's where freedom lies. It's in letting go of the identity, because the identity is the thing that shapes us. It's the thing that shapes you, it shapes me, and it's causing us to act in ways that maybe isn't truly in alignment with our actual desire. Believe me, if you can be grumpy where you are right now, you can be grumpy in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean, in Ibiza, whatever country you aspire to go to, wherever you think is your mecca, wherever you think is going to solve the issues that you perceive you have, they might help you. But if you go there expecting everything to change just because you went there, you might be mistaken. I was. You see, it wasn't moving that changed me. It was me realizing that I needed to change, and then making choices that changed me. Because the choices that you make and the expectations that you have about any place, about your life, about your family, about your friends, about your job, about anything in this world, those expectations are most likely going to be met. And if you want a different outcome, you need a different expectation. So if you're expecting to be bored at home, you're going to be bored at home. I was bored at home for so many years until I decided, no, I want to change my relationship to this land. I want to change my relationship to these people. I want to change my relationship to how I fit in this world, in this particular location. Where I'm sitting right now, I'm literally 10 minutes away from the home that I was raised in. And I feel more free, more powerful, more responsible than I've ever been. And I'm not blaming anybody or anything for the most part. I'm just here and I'm doing my best to create value in my life and in the lives of others, to create art, to share and to inspire people, because ultimately those are the things that give me a sense of purpose. And that's what allows me to wake up feeling invigorated and excited to create something that is hopefully going to impact you in a positive way. And even if it doesn't, I can still say that I put my best foot forward in creating a life for myself that I'm truly proud of, that I'm truly excited about, and hopefully allowing that to ripple through to the lives of the people that are around me. Honestly, this video was supposed to just be me talking about traveling, but all of a sudden that came out. So I'm going to leave it in here because I know that if it's true for me, it's going to resonate with somebody out there. And I'm not saying don't travel. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, that it won't help your situation. It could. It did help me ultimately in a roundabout way that I didn't expect. But my friend, I really want to encourage you to realize that you don't need to go anywhere in order to feel peace within. You don't need to do anything or achieve anything in order to feel peace within. There is no person, there is no place, there is no job that is going to give you that peace within. They might help you in cultivating it and realizing it and seeing that it's already within you, but they will not give it to you. My friend, whatever you were looking for, I believe that you can find it. I did. Have a great day.